think what we are suffering from is ideological confusion. That is, that we're not clear, we're not thinking clearly, and that we need a context within which to answer the question, is something good or bad? We assume that we have the same goals, but we never say what they are. It's time for us to think and articulate and establish our goals as Black nationalists and Pan-Africanists. We need vision, we need clarity. Otherwise, we can't answer the question, is it good for African people? Nationalist goal is self-determination. In the spirit of Delaney, Garvey, Malcolm, Amos, it is Pan-African commitment, that is the unity of African people worldwide and one Africa on the continent as a basis for African strength. So we are about building a Pan-African world order based on the principles of Ma'at, not in imitation of a European order. Ma'at as justice and truth. We need a nation concept, as Dr. Clark told us. A Black economic program, a cultural program, an independent political organization, independent Black media, independent African-centered education financed by us and controlled by us. All of this presupposes, very importantly, an African Black identity.
Okay, everyone. Happy Friday. Yeah, and today we're gonna have a very wonderful show. So I'm Sheniki Jerome, and I'm gonna let my other co-host introduce themselves.
Peace, this is Brother Omowale, the Vice Shinudi of AI Philly.
Peace and love, everybody. It's your girl, Wawa. Let's go.
Hold up, everybody. It's Tristan, ready for this great lineup of topics. So I'm excited, as always.
What's good, everybody? This is LB. I'm always ready.
Yeah, and as you can see, we all have glasses, but Omowale, he has a cask. Yeah, we look really smart today. So today the main topic is gonna be cryptocurrency. But first thing first, as you know, our organization, for those who don't know yet, we have the AI week coming up, right? So I'm gonna show you a beautiful flyer. So AI week is a week where we celebrate Afrocentricity International as an organization and also Afrocentric philosophy, right? So and for this occasion, right, usually what we do, we usually have it starting May 19, which is the birthday of Malcolm X. And we usually take a trip to Ferncliff Cemetery and participate to the Malcolm X pilgrimage organized by Baba Small every year. But unfortunately, with the corona, for the 2 past years, we were not able to attend it. But so what we're going to offer instead is a good panel with everyone kind of discussing about the vindication of Malcolm X, inspired by the 2 recent movies that were streamed online on Netflix. I think it's Who Killed Malcolm X, and the other one is One Night in Miami. So it's really going to be interesting. And as you can see, we're going to have this AO podcast special, the same format, which is going to be the finale. It's going to be a special AI 10 years anniversary. As AI was started 10 years ago. That was August the 1st, 2011. So to finish the season of AO podcast, we just thought about giving you a look into our organization and also where we're coming from. We're going to have some special guests, have like a very good show. Like I say, speak about AI as an organization, AI, Afrocentricity, the perspective in the future, what's currently happening in different divisions. So for those who always want to know more about Afrocentricity International, it's going to be an opportunity. And regular youth series, if you have children on Saturday, May 22nd, you can bring your child. We usually do a children's story circle. So we just tell African stories from around the African world. So that's at 2 p.m. And we're also going to have like a little event for young teenagers who, for parents, just bringing it, it's just for them to start to speak to each other, to start meeting and discussing important things that are relevant for the youth. So that's going to be May 22nd. And we're going to have a all-day watch party May 23rd. That's the day we're going to all watch a movie together. That's good for all families. Just get together, and we're going to watch different film and kind of have like different, we're going to have a chat around it. And the last one, we have a movie that a documentary that we're gonna premiere. It's a documentary that AI as an organization produce and film itself. So we will be really, really grateful if you come and support and watch this film. I think that this is gonna be wonderful. I mean, we're so proud of this project. So this is gonna be the AI week. So you have the date. Follow us on Twitter, on Facebook and Instagram, and you can register to our newsletter. You can have as much as info. Contact us, and we will speak to you more about it if you need to. All right. So did I miss anything? Did I did a good job? Well,
Yeah, you be good. Mm-hmm.
I think you did a black-tastic job from the AWO news desk over here, brother. You did a fantastic job.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. All right. So if there's nothing to add to the AI week, as you know, be there. Come. Everything gonna be online, and hopefully next year we're gonna go back and have it like we're gonna meet again and do activities all together.
If people want to get updates, is there like an event page? Is there any links that they can sign up for our newsletter to get updates about it? Like, how can they find out about more information about AI Week besides the flyer?
Yeah, of course they can go to our Facebook page, right? I said Tata Wahida.
Well, the main thing is follow us across our social media platforms at AI_Philly on Twitter and Instagram, and then at Afrocentricity Internet AI Philadelphia at AI Philadelphia for Facebook. So you'll have updates there. You can always see our newsletters and click on any one of them and subscribe if you're not already in our newsletter subscription. And then again, we'll also be having some things posted up shortly that'll have some more links and information as we get closer to the date. So just follow us on social media, and that's the best way to get any information and updates.
Yep, exactly. Thank you, Wawa. So, all right. So seats, get comfortable on your seat. Now we're going to go around the world. So we're going to jump to our first, before we dive into the main topic, we're going to do our around the world. So what's going on around the African world?
What is the main topic, Brother Shanudi?
Oh, the main topic. I apologize, my brother. The main topic is a hot one. We're going to speak about cryptocurrency. Is it good for African people? You know what I mean? Going to touch a little bit on some good aspect of it. I know Tristan has a lot of things about sovereignty, but I'm not saying. It's going to be good. So today it's cryptocurrency. I know a lot of people want to hear, want to talk about it. A lot of people are interested in investing in it, all that stuff. We're going to try to have like a good analysis. We're going to do our best to speak about it. So stay tight. We're coming to it. But first of all, so many things are happening around the African world. So we just think that it's maybe a good opportunity to tell you what's going on there. So should I start? What should I start with? I'll start, and then we're gonna go on. So the first thing that is happening in the continents, I saw on the news, and that kind of I started paying attention recently is in RDC in Congo, Kinshasa, which is Zaire. Like there's Congo Brazzaville, which is a Republic of Congo, and you also have like RDC, which is Republic of Congo Democratic, something like that. But that's Zaire. That's how we used to call it back then. So I'm always confused. So the President Tshisekedi, right, had declared a state of emergency in North Kivu and in the province of Ituri. And what is so important about it is because we know that This is an area where like you have a lot of like what do you call it? Important mineral
Natural resources.
resources that today that a lot of automaker industry, electronic industry are going after, like coltan and so
Or
forth.
and Shanuti, just to sum up, not to cut you off, but just to sum up,
Mhm.
over 50% of the world's resources is coming from that region. So that's to kind of give the people an idea of how important the
Yeah.
interest is over there. So I would argue maybe even 60%.
Mhm.
And this is natural resources. So, you know, whatever number you want to put on that, that's where we at. And this is the world.
Mhm.
The world.
Yeah. So there's a lot of question why. I mean, it's a region that is known to have a lot of conflict. Like everybody, I'm sure, like a lot of you saw news about what's going on in North Kivu and like war and different attack going on in this region. People being displaced. So people, we know about the resources that they have over there, and it's kind of a new thing. It's something that has never happened. Why is the president is declaring a state of emergency? I think and like the military going to replace the actual um, they're going to replace the actual administration in place, which is a very something. There's something about it that is that kind of pushes to kind of pay attention to whatever is going on over there. So that's something I've been following. Is anyone want to add anything about it? We need to look more into it, but that's kind of something.
Absolutely. Well, you know, as I was mentioning earlier to you guys, we reached out to our sister chapter over there at AI Congo, Shanuti V, and we're waiting to hear back from her for some, you know, any more information on the ground. But what they're saying right now is that this is, you know, a humanitarian crisis, that there's insecurity in the region. Some numbers that I saw was something about killing by armed groups more than doubled in 2020, with almost 2,500 civilians killed, including 10 humanitarian workers. This to 5.2 million displaced persons. You know, 27.3 million people are highly food insecure. I mean, my best guess, and you know, we need more information, but they're gearing this region up to be ready for other military tactics to come in and sort of, you know, that would be my guess,
You
because
know
they
also
know.
sorry, you know one thing actually. The reason why also like this news is simple because recently I saw that the people in Beni, in some region in North Kivu, were asking that the UN leave actually the province because since they've been there since like the 90s, or we don't know, 99 or some years like that,
Exactly.
they
I
haven't
mean,
resolved
and then like they're saying
it.
stuff about like, is there a cover up going on? I'm not sure. I feel like we definitely need more information, but it smells funny to me. You know what I mean? And I think
What's going on over there is a worth of $24 trillion. And that's again just a guess.
exactly. So we know there's money
It's,
involved.
yeah,
Period.
you know what I'm saying? Natural resources that's fueling the world, you know what I'm saying? And $24 trillion.
All right.
We don't have enough fingers, right? And again, it's a situation where the people that are there. So, and I think for me, this raises another issue too. Like you have people who've been sitting on these natural resources for years, but their value system didn't lead them to this to try to get these things, or you know what I'm saying? Like they've been sitting on this all year long. So we got to kind of even like question our value system as well. 24 trillion. Where the fuck y'all get that number from? And why y'all got that number, right? You know what I'm saying? It's just like, so Shanuti, listen, that's where I'm at with it. But 24 trillion natural resources for 60%, you know what I'm saying, providing 60% of the natural resources to the world. That's all the clues we need. You know what I'm saying? And we, you know.
All I know is once they start talking about civilians being killed, once they start talking about humanitarian things like that, that's coded language for we about to go in. You know what I mean? And it always brings me back to like, all right, well, how many Black people y'all killing in here? Like no one ever thinks, all right, let's get some coded language to come in America and like do something, because there's a humanitarian crisis going on over here with our bodies and of our brothers and sisters. So
And
I really hope. Go
go
ahead.
ahead. So I hear. Sorry, go ahead.
No,
And
I'm just. Go ahead.
I think you just said it. It's a coded language, but to me, it's just a distraction, right? The humanitarian issue, the call should have been when them foreigners went in and started saying 24 trillion or putting a dollar amount to it. That's when it should have been so now people are going to be distracted with all these different messages about what's going on but not really getting down to who's doing that, right? Call names now. It's time to call names.
Yeah. And before we move to the other topic that we also have, the next thing going on around the African world, something curious about it is.
Wait. Before you go to the next thing.
No, I'm not going to the next one. I was going to add that the reason why also a particular event happened there. Actually, there were like an imam who opposed to a group coming from Uganda, right? Who happened to be also quote unquote Islamist. I don't know. And they shot him in the head, right, during the prayer. And that's when there were like a huge conflict there. And there's like a correlation. Like, again, now it seems like they're trying to say like Islamists are getting into that area. And there's some act of terrorism now happening in Congo. This is unheard of. And it's getting a little bit funny. We know, like, if it's like we talk about.
I mean, that's also strange, because that particular region isn't really, you don't have a large Islamic population, a large Muslim population there either. And it's just funny how we keep repeatedly seeing jihadists as a tactical and exploitative means to basically, again, say, all right, these people there's terrorism going on, they're out of control, they can't seem to handle it, we need to come and handle it. That's what they constantly keep doing. They do that everywhere. They do that in Mali, they do that, it's just a repeated thing. So I think it's strange that they're bringing this up in this region where, to my knowledge, they're not largely practicing Islam over there.
Yeah.
Well, a little bit. I want to push back a little bit, because the proximity to Muslim countries is close, right? You got
right.
Ethiopia, and I mean
Somalia.
As far as Somalia, but Uganda does have a Muslim population, because I mean, when we think about Ali Mazrui, you know what I'm saying? He's from Uganda, and being Muslim, so there is a Muslim population that's there. I don't know the exact percentage, but I would say that in that region it's kind of like what they would call indigenous religions, Christianity, Islam. So that's kind of like how that area is split up, except when you go further away to, like Somalia, Djibouti, Ethiopia, which is also like kind of split, in certain areas. So,
I think to Lydia's earlier point, and I think this also came up in a previous discussion we were having, just about the nature of extraction-based economies. Like, as African people, our goal can't be, hey, we need to be benefiting from this. You know what I mean? Like, we need to be the ones eating off of it, right? Because it maintains the slave labor, it maintains the aggression and the violence, because it's impossible to sustain an extraction economy, which in and of itself is not sustainable, because it's a non-renewable resource, right? And in order for these multinational corporations to extract those resources, they need to be able to do it with slave labor. But by their nature, they disrupt the local ecosystem and environment. I mean, if you think about it, like, we as African people were once part of the extraction economy, right? We were extracted from the African continent and, brought to this hemisphere of the world by force. And when you look at what that extraction did to the local ecosystem and to the communities there, it's always disrupted. It's always based upon violence. And the way that it's maintained is something that I believe should be in conflict with our values as a people. So I've always been critical of just the industrial economy in general. So I don't want black people to get, in a space where it's like, hey, we need to be the new beneficiaries of this. I think that where our minds need to be is, hey, we should be questioning this and the value system that brought it upon us. Because if we want to continue it on, then I think that we're going to continue on everything that came with it. Like, so that's kind of like my perspective.
I want to hop in and just build on, if I may, Shudit, if I just want to build on what Brother Omawale was saying about the value system and the resource extraction point. And I think it ties into what Sister Wahida and Sister Lydia were talking about the religion. And I think in a region like the Congo, because I think it's very significant in African history, in our history, in particular in the continental region, that there has never been eternal conflict based on religion, right? That's the first thing. And the second thing to this, the value systems about these, because I think when it comes to religion conversations, it's very hard for our people, or sometimes it's just resistance, to grasp the systematic effects of religion. In the Bible, resource extraction is justified, right? Man is to control nature. You look at Mesopotamian ethics, right? This is what, Nana Shemshu Jehudi talks about, or some might know as Jacob Carruthers talks about with metaphysical alienation. All their systems are designed around that, including communists too, because Marxists would think they're separate from that. No, they're included there too. And I think we have to be able to have that infrastructure question. And this kind of goes into it. I know Brother Omo has talked about it with Nigerianism, but how the states are designed. When you have a European state model, that allows them to create these plantation nations, right, so to speak. So I think the Congo is very much a reflection of that, right? Especially when you talk about things like policing, right? To guard the resources of the rich, in this case, to guard, the plantation owner's property.
The Congo is the textbook definition and model of the plantation model you're talking about. If you think about when the European nations first conquered the Western Hemisphere, and look at Haiti, which was the wealthiest extraction colony at that point. Well, if you look at it, you had various nations who had plantation interests on Haiti. You had the British, you had the French, you had the Spanish, right? So it's the same thing with the Congo today. You have multinational, right, transnational corporations and national interests that are vested in the continued domination and control of the Congo of this central Congo region, because it's so resource rich. And if your local economy and the businesses that thrive in your nation are based upon gaining access to those materials, then you are going to maintain this system of domination and violence. Like Sister Wawa said, is violence not only to the people, it's violence to the earth. And I think sometimes when we talk about being African-centered or Afrocentrist, I think at our core, that also makes us environmental advocates, because you have to be an advocate for the earth and an advocate for nature, right? This goes back to previous conversations we had when we talked about your relationship you have with the earth is also indicative in how you view women, right? So the European cultural ethic sees the earth as something that should be dominated, controlled. It's an object. So they do the same thing, because it's a psyche. So I think that if we don't disrupt or question that psyche, then our people will be having this conversation based upon the wrong premise. Their premise will be, well, how do we benefit from it? Instead of how do we end it and live in a way that's more in alignment with continued existence on Earth. Yeah. Because the way that they have us operating is putting our existence on Earth in a precarious position. You know what I mean? So I think that we got to think like that.
I agree.
I want to. Well, go ahead, Chinuti.
No. I mean, go and we move to the next
The one thing I want to say is a little bit of a digression, and I don't want to sound insensitive to the severity of what's happening there. But I do hope one day, and I know if you follow me on Twitter, you probably heard me say this a couple of times in the past, but I'm really excited to see us, we always talk about location, right, as African people, and relocating ourselves. One of the things I'm excited to see in the future is having the Congo become the center of the earth for us as African people. And I'm personally thinking to, work on some projects for that. But there's an area right there. I think we should really think about that on a serious note, because every culture, every religion, they have some sort of central location that they consider the center of their world. And I think that the Congo, for us as African people globally, that should be it. And that would be where we would take our pilgrimage, or, however you want to word that. And there's a city it's called Kisangani right there in DRC. It's right along, just above the equator, literally the center of the world. But you know how, like, England, it's called Greenwich. That's where we pretty much count the center of the world and how they deal with time. So I'd like to see Congo become that for African people in the future. And I know that's a kind of off topic, but I think it's important the way the rest of the world sees Congo resourcefully. I think we should view the Congo as the center of our African world, and really place an importance on it.
Yeah, there's so much to say about Congo. We can speak an entire 2 hour about it. We hope we just scratch the surface here to get you some interest to it. So okay, but okay, let's go. Let's move to something else. What else is going on? What else do we have here?
So I don't know if you guys heard, right? Zimbabwe, they decided that they're going to go ahead to pay $3.5 billion to white farmers whose land was taken during an effort to atone for colonialism. So Robert Mugabe, who was the previous president of Zimbabwe, and he passed away last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
He actually took land away from farmers, again, to try to compensate for the colonialism when Europeans took land from Africans. And now the new president that's in power has agreed to reverse that and pretty much give them money back for land they lost, which I don't even know what way, to try to rationalize how to, make this make sense to us as African people. Somebody comes, steals your land, right? Somebody else says, okay, no, that's not right. We're taking the land back from you. We're going to try to redistribute some of that wealth back to the original people. And then the next person comes and says, nah, we're sorry we did that. We're going to pay you for this, even though you're thieves in the first place. How do you pay thieves? Like, I don't get that. You know what I mean?
It's very simple.
And it's really just another example of neocolonial puppets in power, right? So that's kind of happening. And I feel like that's something important that we should weigh on, because we have this big conversation about reparation, not only here, but everywhere. South Africa, expropriation without compensation. Here in Zimbabwe, they did this. We're constantly talking about this in America. And then to see this, I was just very disappointed. But not surprised.
So I just shared a link in the chat because it's funny you brought that up. Because very recently, Sister Tyranny, African Esquire, had Brother Obi Egbuna Jr. on her show, who's the U.S. correspondent for the Herald newspaper, I believe, the Zimbabwe Herald, and he had a whole discussion on Zimbabwe's freedom struggle then and now. So I would advise our viewers to certainly, if you haven't checked out this particular episode, go check this out, because nothing that we say today during this AWO podcast is going to do the Zimbabwe question justice in the manner that conversation did. So I shared the link there. But I say all that to say that the situation in Zimbabwe is very complicated. And I think that there is more than what meets the eye. I do think that there is geopolitics and strategy that's happening, because you have to remember Zimbabwe is being isolated, and we have U.S. Intelligence entities are doing their best to destabilize Zimbabwe and to make the people there rebel so that those Western interests can regain control over Zimbabwe. So nothing is really what it seems. So it was very refreshing to hear from someone who was very close to what's happening there, like their particular perspective. And the one thing that he left me with is that it's an imperfect situation. There are some contradictions, but we can never use the contradictions of Zimbabwe to abandon our support of them. You know what I mean? So, not saying that that's what we're putting forth here. I'm just saying that like the situation is far from perfect over there, but it's very nuanced in many ways. So that's probably my contribution to this.
Yeah, it's a typical strategy because they put you in a position where like you don't have a lot of choice but to make compromises, and I feel this is what is happening because, I mean, this is what Zimbabwean fought for, I mean, and this is, I mean, I remember going in to when Dr. Arikana, when she was I mean, I don't think she's still, but I think that's after she left a position of the AU ambassador, and she was kind of speaking about the way these white farmers, when they came in and remove a family from a land, you know what I mean, and this is really personal. This is something that is hurting, and to see those things happen, I understand. I fully understand that Zimbabweans are struggling with the economy. Africa is not in a position where it should be. The African world is not where it should be right now. So Zimbabwe is really isolated, and I can see exactly what you're saying. But yet, I'm still very mad. Like I cannot stand it. I know how hard it is. I mean, I don't know, but like I want to think that it's very difficult to make that decision, right? But still, for me, this type of situation, like it hurts me. I don't like seeing it. It's painful. I know, like the president Mugabe would have never done it during his lifetime, and it's so to me. I mean, it's not something that that I like to hear, but I can understand at the same time. Maybe it's a strategic decision.
I think just to kind of add to what Brother Omawale and Shanudi are saying, when I look at Zimbabwe, I think also in terms of the geopolitics and complexity, I think you also have to look at South Africa, right? And it's still dealing with the Boer terrorists over there. And I think that apartheid strategy, the Mandela strategy, kind of like how with African people in the United States, Obama before Obama, I guess, with Nelson Mandela, I think that having South Africa the way it is and having Zimbabwe the way it is, Eurasian interference that way is done purposely so that Zimbabwe and South Africa do not become Haiti, because Haiti is an island. So you can get away with certain things. You can cut them off from Jamaicans. You can cut them off from Trinidad. You can cut them from Cuba. But Zimbabwe and South Africa, you can't block out like that. That's why Eurasians love, and I use that in scare quotes, love Mandela and will love the post-Mugabe president. This isn't to say Mugabe isn't without his faults. I mean, he still wears European clothes and talks about a Eurasian religion. However, when Eurasians are thinking about these things, they're thinking of who brings the most pressure against their rule, and him supporting the side that obviously took away, returning land, really, well, taking away, removing the thieveries, right? That's not something Eurasians want to hear about, right? And I see the same thing with apartheid South Africa. Why is it that Mandela is this nice guy, and then you hear nothing about Robert Sobukwe? Right? Yeah. Those types of things. And I think South Africa and Zimbabwe in particular, just that geopolitics is very important to pay attention to, because to just put it bluntly, if there's no white control in those regions, the institutionalization of Pan-Africanism happens a lot faster. and the destruction of Eurasian terror domination. I think it's just that simple.
All right, LB, if you have nothing, what else we have here? LB, you want to say something? No,
Nope.
you just mad.
That's literally no exaggeration. That's really where I'm at with it. So yeah, I'm good.
All right, Wally, did you? Okay, so I thought you want to add something really quick. So what's the next thing we have here? What else is going on around the African world before we come home? What else?
Well, I mean, I don't know if it necessarily fits. Well,
oh, the ancestor day.
Yeah, I was going to say, we talked about South Africa, so we could roll that in right into the Ancestors Day. And then, in this, to what Tristan just said, why it's important that these kind of practices are in place for us, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny because when Wahida brought the topic up of Ancestors Day, I just had a conversation with a family member, and it wasn't a nice thing, but I was talking to my sister, and I really don't. People need to understand how important it is for us to always remember our ancestors and venerate them, right? Because when we don't do that, so much is lost of the work that they've done, the resistance that they put up. You know what I'm saying? Like when we don't uplift them, that's what we lose. We lose who we are, right? We lose the ideas. We lose our imagination. And when I say imagination, I don't mean made up. We lose strategies. You know what I'm saying? We lose all these things when we're not talking about our ancestors. You know what I'm saying? Like if we don't understand who
I think we need to tell what's ancestor day is, because I don't think we explain it to the audience.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Wahida.
Yeah, you know what? Can I share my screen real quick? I just have something pulled up here. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Share screen.
Some technical difficulties?
No. Let me know if you can see it.
So far, no. Oh, we have to
almost.
I just added it to the stream.
Okay, great. All right, so shout out to our guys and Dalian and his wife at Ancestral Voices. So that's how I found out about it. So South Africa pretty much decided to establish like a national ancestors day, right? To pretty much embrace ancestors lineage and just kind of like solidify this as on a national stage. And I don't know if we want to, this is a quick little video. I don't know if you want me to play it, but basically they're just talking about how they're,
Hello? You still there, Wawa?
That's just basically, I don't want to go into that too long, but basically they created a national day for Ancestors Day. That's tomorrow. And immediately you got people on Twitter, across social medias rejecting outright this day, calling it, devil worship, things like that, that this is, to reject this day. And you've got people even from Namibia, I think it looks like, saying, we're going to pray with you we're organizing around rejecting this day and things like that. Like, where else do you get so much? And then you have some people who come by and they're like, okay, yeah, reject our roots and adopt other fictional stories. That's a good idea. So, it's just funny how when it comes to our ancestral, how do I stop sharing?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I found it. So it's like, how do we get such backlash when it comes to our ancestry, right? But nobody ever says, like, nobody is ever stopping Christians from doing their thing, or like, yeah, we might critique certain things about that practice, but we're not just outright like demonizing what they do, or we're not outright like telling them they can't do this, or organizing against like them having a day or practicing their own religion, because that is actually anti-African, right? So it's funny that as soon as you've got people who say something simple like, yeah, let's just honor people who came before us. Let's honor our folks. You don't see the Vietnamese or the Chinese. Nobody ever rejects them honoring their ancestors. Nobody ever does that. But for some reason, it's a big to do when it comes to African people honoring their ancestors. And the reason why is because they know how powerful it is once we start doing that. They know how much conviction you start to have. They know how much energy and soul and spirit that gives you once you start doing that. And they absolutely are, they are diametrically opposed to having Black people reconnect to their ancestors all across the world, because they know that spells disaster for the system.
And to
we need to
Wahita's point, sorry, just to jump, I have to jump this real quick. Oh, sorry, I think there was a delay.
Nah, you good.
You talk. I talk too much.
No, I was just gonna say, I'm about to get reckless with my language and say we need to stop giving a fuck what they think. You know what I'm saying? I don't give a fuck if a Vietnamese care if I don't care if I'm bigging up my ancestors, because to be quite frankly, again, it's plain and simple. I'm just gonna get a shirt that say I don't give a fuck what you think. You know what I'm saying? And that's just where I'm at with it. So
I do want to say so, because I know I'll save you from the reckless. My mouth be reckless. Sorry, y'all. Relieve Westmoreland. Sorry. What was I gonna say? So to Sister Wahita's point, though, that I got why she did the comparison thing, and I think obviously, it's the difference between, who are the people that Eurasians are enslaving? It's African people, right? That's the basis of white terror domination. And I think we need to be reminded of that, especially with this anti-Asian hate propaganda, just as a sidebar. And the way that, African majority nations, like in the Caribbean and the continent, respond to indigenous spiritual systems reflects that. And to something you said, Wahita, about, with the Christians, they always make sure they attack, and the Islamics, right? Because they're evangelical faiths, right? That's what, the Eurasian, as Nana Mama Marimbani would say, the Utama Rojo of, the Eurasian ethic, right? It's always to impose their ancestors onto you. So when we do venerate our own ancestors, we don't impose it onto other people, but when we start doing that, we'll know to get them out of our countries. That's what will start to happen, right? We'll know that, okay, you white farmers, why are you even a thought? Because when we're venerating, Allah, and we're venerating Jehovah or whatever in the sky or whatever, that's what prevents us from really kicking them out. Like just as a side note, I brought up South Africa earlier. There was one conversation I was listening to. This was a few years ago, when a South African commentator, I just wish I remember the name, but said something to the effect of white anti-racism being a major distraction in South Africa, because what we should be focusing on, if I remember it correctly, is not these type of moral conversations on how we can coexist. They're supposed to be off African land, right? That's the whole point. And when we get away from that moralizing way of understanding Eurasians and we get into African sovereignty, right? We understand that. And because our spiritual systems maintain us as sacred without imposing on other people, it's just Africa for Africans, as to make it simple. We don't need to do that. But when we start practicing it, we'll know we don't need no churches in Jamaica. We don't need no churches in Haiti. We don't need no Jesus statue in the middle of the square in Accra. We get rid of them. That's why they don't want it. It's because Christianity is a hustle. It's all about trying to beat out other people. That's the only way Christianity could survive.
Yeah,
and I think that's why that point is important.
Please do send me that thread where the folks from Mozambique or Zimbabwe are saying we're going to pray for you, and about like devil worship and shit like that, because I'll be engaged in a panel discussion on does Abrahamic religions compromise African liberation. And that right there just evidences it very clearly. Like, it's like you got people like, hey, I'm going to pray for you because you want to worship your ancestors. Meanwhile, every other culture that dominates us venerates their ancestors. Like, you can't go anywhere in the United States without Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, Abraham Lincoln. Like, they're named after all of the buildings, all of the streets are named after their ancestors. Like, even their ancestors that like terrorized us. I mean, and they took some of them down because of you know, with the protests and stuff like that. They started taking down some of the Confederates. But I mean, black people are still celebrating that getting a Rhodes Scholarship. Oh, I'm a Rhodes Scholar. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this dude terrorized. You know,
Cecil Rhodes is a terrorist.
He was a terrorist. And black people were like, hey, I'm a Rhodes Scholar. So, I think that, you know, it's very interesting that when we want to venerate our own ancestors, then we get accused by our own people of devil worship. So, which by the way, is an excellent segue to bring it back locally.
Wait, I got you though. I sent it to you on Twitter already. I got you, bro. And by the way, we're very excited. A lot of people very excited for that discussion. Yeah,
it'll be a good one. But back to Omowale's segue. Speaking of devils, these devils over at UPenn. Let me know if y'all can share my screen. See my screen.
Yeah, we see it.
Yeah, we can see it.
All right. So yeah, the devils over at the University of Pennsylvania. It has been brought to the attention of the Philadelphia community that subsequent to the MOVE bombing that occurred on May 13th, 1985, two of the young children who were killed, who were Delisha Africa and Tree Africa, their remains were held by the University of Pennsylvania, and I believe, I think it's Princeton School of Anthropology, were using the remains of these children to study, you know, anthropology, like using them in school, like some cold-hearted, very like demonic.
And might I add real quick, they had those remains in a box for years, just sitting on a shelf.
So yeah, absolutely, that's correct. So you know, speaking of, when we're talking about what's happening around the African world, you know, it's important for us to stay abreast as to what's happening in our own backyard. So here at AI Philly, in the Philadelphia community, the community is organizing to apply pressure to the University of Penn. An apology is not enough. There needs to be restitution paid. There needs to be reparations. Like something severe needs to occur for what has, you know, what has occurred with this particular situation. Not allowing the family to have the remains of their children, so that their children could be properly laid to rest and given the respect and dignity, you know, of being human. You know, after such an inhumane act was done to them, right? Dropping a bomb, you know, on a major city, you know, in a so-called free country. So, I mean, we as African people know who we are. We know who our enemy is, and I think that we have to remain clear, you know, on that fact. So, I think that's really all I got to say on that. So, I mean, I'll kick it over to my brother Shanuti if you want.
Real quick, before you do that, to add to what you were saying, about organizing, the 36th anniversary of the MOVE bombing, they will be having like a 36th anniversary, about the MOVE bombing of May 15th at the Cobbs Creek Rec Center. So if you in Philly, want to come to Philly, and it's showing on the MOVE website, from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. So if you in Philly, or, you know, want to get involved, and like O said, the community is you know, organizing around that, you know, be sure to check that out.
Well, thank you. This is a good information. Thank you again. That was great. Yeah. So yeah, we kind of, the time is kind of running out, and we haven't speak about the main topic of today, which is cryptocurrency. Is it good for African people, right? So,
well, I just want to you know, if anyone, Mike Africa, if anybody's seen this, you know, we got much love for you, your family. We support you, and we really a shout out to them for full blown rejecting the apology too, right? Because I think taking that stand is also important. A lot of times when we're disrespected, you know, our remains are desecrated, so on and so forth. Somebody, you know, an institution will offer an apology, and we immediately go to forgiveness. And, you know, kind of just, you know what I mean? Like doing that dance. So I really, once I read that they rejected publicly that apology, I was really happy to hear that.
Yeah. Now I was also really glad to see that they refused the apology, because sometimes we just accept things too easy. And I'm supporting 100% MOVE on this decision. And Tristan, do you want to say something?
I think enough has been said, but that apology part again, that's the Jesusism, right? That's where that comes from. We don't like to talk about it, but that's the Jesusism.
Jesusism, man. You always have those terms.
Now these are acts of war, right? And this is just the disrespect. It can't continue. So not forgiving is a way to make sure that we show people after us. You don't have to accept this. You know what I mean? These so-called apologies. That means nothing. None of that means anything. And this behavior will continue if we don't do something about it and we don't change the way we're thinking. But besides that, we will be having further discussion on this from a spiritual perspective. I think when we discussed, African Liberation Day, and we released the documentary in terms of our remains, our ancestry. Just remember, if you can understand that our Black African lives matter, then our ancestors' lives matter too. Our remains matter too, and our sacred spaces matter too.
Oh, for some reason we lost LB.
She'll be back. She'll be back. She'll be back. I had to kick her off real quick, but she'll be back.
You kick out.
I'm just joking.
All right, cryptocurrency people. Let's go to it, and we need to talk about this. Why is cryptocurrency so important? Why people are so excited about it? Some people are disappointed. Is it important for African people? We need to speak about this.
I definitely have my perspective, but I'm gonna let other folks.
You wanna let?
Yeah,
So who wanna jump in first? Come on.
Me. I'll jump in today. I'll be more jumpy today. What I will say about cryptocurrency, I think anything that is not particular and specific to African people and African sustainability is not good for African people. Anything that can be universal is not good for African people. We need to cut this crap with this universal diversity and we are black remixing of European things. So my first thing is, if you have to say how Black people use cryptocurrency versus how X other group uses it, it's probably not good for African people in a general sense. We can talk about situational as we navigate a complex reality being in a plantation condition. But if you want to ask the overall broader, tough, hard question, it's just simply no. We can develop our own economies based on our own principles, not of alienation, extraction systems. And I think cryptocurrency is part of that conversation. Just like I think it's comparable in some ways, this might be a stretch, but to the idea of a universal basic income, which I think is also part of alienation again. But that's what I'll say for that.
Yeah, I'm very aligned with my brother Tristan on this one. You know what I mean? Usually we be at odds. So I'm messing with you, Tristan, but no, I'm actually very aligned with you with your perspective. I think that I have a few takes on it. The first is that we have to be clear, that if we're fighting for liberation, then the capitalism, right, is not going to be something. It's not going to be a pathway towards freeing ourselves. Now, I say that fully understanding that due to the fact that capitalism currently dominates our global reality, much of our time is associated with money, right? You have to find a way to earn, right, in order to buy back your time so that you can use your time for what you want to use it on, right? So I think that I can understand, why some of our people would want to speculate with cryptocurrency. And I do say speculate and not invest, right? Because it's not an investment, it's more of a speculative vehicle, because you are putting money, into cryptocurrency and blockchain and these other digital assets with the hope that if I buy it for $1, I'll catch this wave and it'll go up to 50,000 and it just made me buku rich by getting in. So I understand people's need to try to figure out a way to earn extra or make extra money because, so much of our time is controlled by money, and our only way of attaining money in a capitalist society is selling our labor. So if people can find other ways to, get money besides their, selling their labor, then I completely get it. But what makes me completely reject it as something as a good thing for African people, because I think that cryptocurrency serves as a safety valve to maintain the plunder that has been stolen from us over the past 400 years. So what you have in terms of like trends in society is the very wealthy people are talking about, setting up, these new smart cities, which will essentially be centers of massive wealth in between deserts of wasteland where the majority of society will live, going into the future. So if you go into a completely 100% cashless society and everything is digitalized, and you put yourself in a position, one, where this entity has full control over you, especially if you allow them to to enact universal basic income, due to the fact that employment or selling your labor is no longer a thing in the future economy. But then also when you have these fucking, excuse my language, because they already have the technology to do cashless cities, right? They have RFID cards that you can walk into a store, and everything that you pick up and put into your basket, when you walk out of the store, your account gets charged. You don't even got to go to a cash register. So they can just put a motherfucking chip in your arm that becomes your digital fucking account, and you're walking around this city, and this is how you spend and transact. So if you're like one of those like so-called Afro-futurists who dream of a future black world under white supremacy, then maybe, it's a fucking good thing. But if you're somebody who understands that the truth is that all wealth, full stop, is contained in land and natural resources, and the so-called paper currency or fiat currency that we use is just a medium of exchange that's supposed to represent that resource, then the true resource and the wealth is always going to be that. And if you allow them to sell you on going cashless or making crypto your dominant form of exchange, then you're further controlled and conquered and brought into the system that you should be trying to break, because it's breaking your back everywhere. So that's my perspective. So for the people who want to invest in crypto, I'm not telling you don't go speculate. Like if you want to speculate, do your thing. I'm not going to tell you no. Do what you want to do. But I'm just saying, don't be under any false illusion that this is some pathway to African freedom.
Yeah, I don't like definitely the speculative part of it. I understand the use of it, the cryptocurrency. Something I like with something I thought about it a long time ago when I heard about the cryptocurrency. I like the fact, because when you go in Africa right now, like in the French colonies, the French old colonies that they built over there, where they're using now like this fake currency, the CFA, right? You can or if you even go, or we spoke about Zimbabwe, for instance, where like they had like a situation of how they call it again, inflation, where, or like in what's the other country, Guinea, where like French people just put a bunch of cash money, and it create kind of also like a surplus of the monetary mass. I think that the cryptocurrency can play an important role for a serious government, because you have to look at it as a tool, not as like it's simply a tool to me. The way I look at it, it's a technology, right? It's a technology that countries or people can use to, at least, like, if you're a serious government and you control your technology, because that's the missing part to me. Like we do not control, as a country or as a group of people, we don't control Bitcoin, we don't control Dogecoin or all those things. We don't know who invented it. We don't understand the technology fully. But I'm thinking that if we able to build our own cryptocurrency that is controlled by our own people, it can be a different world. I think there's use to cryptocurrency, especially if we can protect, if just from the technical standpoint, if we can protect against inflation, because regardless what group of people or society that you have in any economy, we know that there's always a medium of exchange, and if there's an excess of this medium of exchange, right, eventually it will cause an economic crash. So
can I say something real quick? Oh, before you say that,
Go ahead.
That's really the point that what Tristan was saying, right? Tristan and Omawale is saying we got to really think about like what that means against sovereignty and liberation. I remember watching an interview with a professor, Keto Swan. He's talking about a book that he just released. And in the conversation, he mentioned, I forget what area in the Pacific, over in the Pacific, and the people decided that they was just going to take back who they were. So their exchange was whatever, I think it was like animal tusks or whatever it was, because that was a value to them in their economy. You understand what I'm saying? So we got to kind of figure out what our value system is, because once we figure that out, cryptocurrency may not be the look, right? You know what I'm saying? We got to use our imagination again. You know what I'm saying? And develop stuff that's for us, that's relevant for us. I'm gonna
have to push back just slightly.
Before you jump in, Wahida, because I wanted to say something before El Boog jumped in.
Sorry.
Yeah, can y'all hear me?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Just to follow up on El Boog's point as a response to Shanuti, the danger, right, in these cashless societies and the full adoption of cryptocurrency. I think that's Tristan. So there's a couple of value-based assumptions that happen here, right? When they talk about these smart cities of the future, one, it presumes that all African people at some point in the future will live in cities, right? Moving us out of villages and into urban centers. So we have to question, one, is this future reality one that's good for us and our health and well-being as a people? Being city dwellers and alienating ourselves from the land and the villages, things like that. That's the first thing. The second thing becomes, if you have this split where you have a portion of the community in cities and then other parts in a village, what becomes of the people in the village who are now dependent upon this new system? Are they solely now dependent upon bartering for exchange? The third and most important part is, and when you talk about the control of the technology and whose platform is being built on, well, look at the control that they already have with paper cash due to electronic banking. I'll give you a perfect example. There was just a story on NPR about the U.S. re-engaging in diplomatic conversations with Iran. Now, Iran is like, fuck you, we ain't trying to come to the table and have a conversation until y'all first release our funds. Because what happened is, two things occurred. The British said to Iran, hey, we're going to sell you these weapons. Give us the money. Iran gave them the money, wired them the money. British said, fuck y'all, we ain't giving you the weapons. Then another thing happened. The U.S. started to freeze the accounts of anything that was suspected of being associated with the Iranian government. So now the Iranian government has all this money locked out that they cannot access because they've been considered an enemy nation. So therefore, they can't access their paper money because it's all electronic. They can't go into a bank and get it. So what happens when you go fully digital or crypto in that same situation where just how they do economic sanctions on places like Zimbabwe now, where they want to basically bend your nation to the will of the IMF, which is the International Monetary Fund, but now they have fucking full control over your means of exchange. Like for me, I don't want to necessarily focus, like it is a threat assessment, but we have to ask ourselves, if we're talking about sovereignty and we're talking about liberation, how do we want to live? On whose terms do we want to live? And is cryptocurrency a part of that vision? That's my perspective.
All right, so I want to kind of push back a little bit because I don't know if my understanding of cryptocurrency is correct, but what I understand cryptocurrency to be is actually aiming to cut out the middleman. They're cutting out banks. They're cutting out credit card companies. They're cutting out the IMF, which is why what you're talking about, I don't know if that really applies here. And I'm not sitting here trying to be an advocate for cryptocurrency. Let me just preface by saying that. But in this conversation, for people on the continent, right? Like I know here in America, when we talk about crypto, we're talking about speculating. We're talking about trying to make a quick buck and flip it. We're talking about trying to catch a wave, right? But on the continent, I know that a lot of people there are mainly using it for actual commerce. Like they utilize certain cryptocurrencies for actually buying things and using it as money, right? But instead of using it as fiat money or as, you know, government controlled money, they're kind of swapping out the control that these centralized banks have to a decentralized system. So that, and then you mentioned something important about these future smart cities, right? A lot of people who are able to use crypto, they're able to access it in rural regions. So that's why they're finding it to be beneficial. They can do this anywhere so long as they have some internet. That's it. You know, and again, going back to the point about
there are 5 billion.
Do we need to drive? If to Shanuti's point, as long as you're able to build and sustain and develop your own blockchain and your own crypto, then you could be fully in control of it anywhere in the world. The problem is, I think there are a couple African cryptos so far, but I don't know which ones they are. I've just heard about it. I haven't done much to research into it. And we don't know how secure it is based on who built it, but that's fully possible. The thing that I think is, I'm not going to sit here and sell it as a way to liberation, but we here are very comfortable with our bank accounts and our, you know, our checking accounts and our credit cards and our access to our fake paper money and the way we do things and interact. But a lot of people on the continent, they have a lot of problems with banking systems, and they don't have the same accessibility that maybe we're comfortable with and we think is prevalent everywhere. And crypto has been a game changer for a lot of people, I think, in ways that I'm not sure we're really necessarily thinking about or used to or associating it with. So I will say that there's much more to be said about this. And I know that even in like South Africa, parts of Kenya, and other places, they've implemented different types of crypto to use for different commerce and business transactions. So like it's been something that I've heard has been something very helpful for people, where banks and the IMF and all of those things have been a problem historically. So I don't know. And then like when you bring up Iran, for example, it's interesting because one of the reasons people would talk about from a financial standpoint, right, everything world operates by money, is that certain places, the IMF does not have control, does not, like the banking system haven't taken over certain countries, like North Korea is one of them. Iran was one of them. Back, years ago, Syria was another one. And then you wonder why they're going in these countries for resources and control and so forth. So like when you block people out of that IMF, they have to do other things. And I think for African people, we'll be able to utilize something else that's outside of those systems. I think in that regard, it is beneficial to us, in my opinion.
So let me respond really quick to a couple of points.
Let's have Tristan speak because it's been a while he hasn't spoken yet. Go ahead.
I just want to say, I think, because I see a lot of, and I've seen some questions in the chat. I think the questions we should ask, rather than getting in, well, I said my views already. I think two things we should ask is, well, one, there's the obvious reality, we navigate banks, cryptocurrency, whichever way you go, because of the conditions we're in. But if we're trying to imagine our sovereignty, right, and what that looks like, because I think sometimes I've seen some questions that no, not you all. I'm just trying to connect everything I'm seeing. I think when we're analyzing its value in terms of the larger liberation project, I think in that context, we should look at what are our values and how does a bank system, because I have my view, but just the question we should be thinking about, how does a bank or a cryptocurrency system relate to African values? I think that's the big question we need to ask in terms of how we're imagining this imagining and working towards, not just imagining in an abstract way, but also working towards this kind of, African sovereign Pan-African network, whether you think it's the United States of Africa or a conglomerate of sorts.
Well, two big things about money, right? The first thing is this. When you think about, as long as people in power sit down and agree to what is of value. So like right now we exist, like cash is paper, it's nothing. But you had people who sat down and said, okay, this is representative of a certain value, and this is what we're going to trade with and barter with. This cash paper that's valueless, right? But as long as people agree on what that is, you can move and operate economies with that. So we can do the same thing. Like Sister Lydia was talking about, what were you talking about? Tusks or something, right? Something tangible that actually exists, something resourceful from the land. If we decided, okay, leopard skins are how we're going to trade, as long as we all sit down and agree on that, we can make whatever we want possible. Right. And so the second thing about crypto is that I would suggest it's not extraction based. Like crypto doesn't have to like go and take gold from the land or diamond from the land or kill off elephant for us to say we have value of something, but we can attach it to something, right? Like we could say this is representative of this, and utilizing technology to be able to make it accessible for people. So we can, I'm just saying that to say we can create whatever we want with it. But if you have a system that's not decentralized, we don't have to depend on banks. We don't have to depend on IMF.
I have to moderate now.
Well, my thing is just
to moderate the time.
I'm not saying we can or can't, but I think we need a value system that tells us whether it's even worth us trying or not. But we need to have, I think what happens when it comes to economic questions, when it comes to the socialism question, when it comes to the banking question or the crypto question, I see the same thing. And I think that's where I think really looking to our ancestors, looking to our civilizations, how they organized, I think that's really important, because I think sometimes when we think of the future or we think of talking about, practicing African culture, we tend to think, not you, I know you don't. We tend to think it's passé or it's not workable. But when we're talking about modernity, a lot of the times we're talking about what white people feel is in today and out yesterday. So I think that's very important that we're clear on what are African values of exchanging resources amongst people to judge cryptocurrency. That's all I mean. That's why I want to clarify the question.
Let speak and then Omowale, because you two have speak a lot. I have to moderate now. All right, LB, go ahead.
No, I'm good. O can go.
Go O.
Wow. Yeah, there was a lot said there. How do I want to start with this?
You want to go back to Tristan?
No. There's a couple of points that I want to tie in. First and foremost, we have to remember that we exist. A part of our domination is the global capitalist system that currently exists. Now that's a part of it. That's like, I'm not saying that like capitalism is the end all be all, but that's a part of the problem that we have to address. And in my mind, you don't, African people, when we're having a conversation on liberation and sovereignty, most people, like I'm looking at lots of Afrodinka's comments like in the chat, and in my mind, a lot of his comments presume a future in which the current global terms that presently exist will still exist. And I think that when we do that, or when we have a conversation with the assumption that in our future we'll still be under domination, that's not the conversation that I'm trying to have. So for me, a part of liberating ourselves involves collapsing the monetary system that supports capitalism. Like that's for me, but that's a deeper conversation that goes somewhere else. But when we talk about the current monetary system right now and as it currently exists and how we use it, the large majority of African people globally operate using cash, right? Like there's lots of people who don't even have bank accounts. We talk about people in our community that have to use like check cash in places because they operate with cash. I mean, there's different economies that are not even seen or tracked, right? And I think for a while that was the benefit of using cryptocurrency like blockchain, because it couldn't be tracked. It was currency that was good for like the dark web. But now when we talk about making it the dominant currency and the replacement for cash, going into a cashless society, it becomes a regulated entity. So when you look historically at how cash operated historically the way that the marijuana industry functions right now, right? You have a situation where you have lots of what do those people call it? Like I call them profiteers, whatever you want to call it, these small shops popping up, getting involved in the marijuana business. But then what happens is the larger industry, because we exist in capitalism, so it's dog eat dog, the larger industry comes and consolidates and closes this all up. The same thing happened with the history of cash. You used to have lots of different types of notes. You used to have a note called greenbacks, like during slavery, but they had lots of different types of cash notes. But then as America got a central bank and America started to pass laws to regulate its currency, then dog eat dog, the smaller notes and smaller banks go away. So what's happening with the direction that we're going in? I mean, this article is from 3 days ago, right? This is an article that was just put out because I saw folks talking about this. Let me know if y'all can see the screen here. So this article referencing Bitcoin coming to hundreds of U.S. banks this year says crypto custodian from NYDIG, right? So the banks are already hopping in a very big way. So what the speculators are trying to do, like people who have lots of money, I think Elon Musk put like $1.5 million into crypto. People who have lots of money to invest, they're trying to jump in ahead of the regulation and consolidation so that when it reaches its value as the public entity, they can cash out because they paid 1.5 for this entity. And now the 1.5 that he paid in 2020 and 2030, the shit is worth fucking $500 million. Right. And this becomes the new entity that fucking like.
But keep in mind, the banks hated cryptocurrency when it came out. And the reason why is because it was taken out. So it's kind of one of those situations where they're like, you got to figure out how to get in. This isn't going to go away. We got to figure out how to manipulate this to our advantage.
So if the question is it good for African people? And we're talking about an end game, you have to look at the type of society they're looking to develop based upon cryptocurrency and cashless societies. And for me,
it's a technology. Because like the way you look at it, hold on, because I need to.
But money is a technology.
Yeah, but that's
the dollar bill
right
is a technology.
Right now, I think that you make a point. Yes, like right now it's really speculative. I get it. Like I think people attach a value, but for me, like the thing is what, like that's what I'm saying. That the first thing that we need to have. Let me roll back, right? As a country, if I'm selling, for instance, I'm selling cars. I'm from Gabon. I'm selling cars from Gabon. I decide which currency you have to find in the market to buy my cars. Meaning that if Gabon tomorrow create a cryptocurrency, and I call that cryptocurrency Jerome, right? There's only 22 million of these coins out there. I'm selling one car for one Jerome. That's what whoever China come, they have to buy from. I'm still in control of my cryptocurrency. You know what I mean? I think the problem today is that
you're not in control of your cryptocurrency, because just as though the global market for cash is based on the US dollar, your cryptocurrency Jerome is valued based upon the dominant player in the game. The way that the US crashes economies is they contract dollars, or they put dollars. If they want to devalue, because
it's a political decision, Omowale. Like
let me ask
decision how you value your you can
okay. Let me ask you this question. This is a question I have for you.
Yeah.
Because Tristan talked at the very beginning, he talked about these universal entities of control, right? So are the IMF and World Bank good for African people?
No. We all agree on that. We're clear on that, and we know that to be the case. I will say though, like take Shinuti's example, right? Like if Gabon decides they want to come out with a cryptocurrency, but I think what's happening though too is a lot of these cryptocurrencies are just they're based on nothing, right? Like they don't have any secure form, or they're not really like for anything tangible. But you have cryptocurrencies that are used for certain things that do well. Let's say Chinudi wanted to make crypto on what's in Gabon, the Igbo game, right? Let's say you wanted to make cryptocurrency that's backed by a resource that only Gabon has. And then Congo has a cryptocurrency that's backed by, I don't know, the plethora of resources that exist in Congo. And then like Tristan was talking about our values, right? What we don't want to do is we don't want to do what currently is going on, which is extracting the world of its resources, just destabilizing the earth, destroying the earth, all the things and the effects that it has on people and bodies. So like, I feel, again, going back to my ultimate point, which is if we want to escape this capitalist system, but we still need to trade and barter, but it has to be, you have to utilize something to be able to do that, whether it's physically taking ibogaine and taking copper or lithium or whatever else, Congo has. We can use crypto to attach it to those things as representations of that value, and we can trade it. So I'm thinking in terms of liberation of African people. If you got people in South Africa and you got somebody in Senegambia, how can we make it easy for us to trade with each other as African people? If you got somebody in Rwanda and they want to trade with somebody in Haiti, how can they do that easily? And I think that this might be something that would be beneficial for African people. But again, I can be wrong. And I think Tristan's point is really the key is what are our values and why are we doing it? But I think that we can create the world or create the system that we want. And perhaps crypto, even if we didn't necessarily come up with crypto, it's not like we can't use it for how we want to use it. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, like there's a lot of advantage to it. I'm sorry, like I have like maybe I have a hard time understanding where you're going with the future city, but my understanding of how the money works, how cryptocurrency is not centralized, I think that at this point you can have like real exchange. To me, that's really important. It's okay if someone else has if Gabon has some stash of bitcoins, they can buy the things that they want. But today, what's happening in Africa, like in Gabon, for instance, like in order for somebody in Gabon, in Senegal, on the Ivory Coast to buy any machineries, they can't even do that because they need to obtain the euro first, right?
Yeah, you have to go through the banks.
You have to go to the bank, and like that's where they block you. But like if you have the cryptocurrency, and like your country was able to trade with whoever it wants without any type of centralized area, they're able to go around the IMF and all. I think to me, that's also a perfect deal. I don't know how it can be really a problem for African people. All we have to do is to understand the technology, having like a good infrastructures, to a good connection, whatever. We just need to invest on ourselves. So that's as simple as it.
But I mean, I hear what everybody is saying, but O raised something that's very important about who the big dogs are in the game, because everybody is harping on the fact that cryptocurrency is some sort of decentralized currency, and technically it's not. They're still going through the banking system, and it's still only a certain amount of people who are really game changers. You know what I'm saying? In this whole cryptocurrency thing. So I think going back to the original point where we set in our values, because right now we're having a conversation on how do we take advantage of a system that we didn't devise or currency that we didn't devise. And we got to stop asking that question and devise our own system and make everybody kind of work with us. You know what I'm saying? It's like we working backwards. That's how I feel about it. But being in the let me not say that. Let me just say that whole decentralized market that everybody is harping on is really not what it is.
Well, I'll say that. I think that even if you think about, we always talk about divorcing the system and things like that, unless there's just flat out, all out revolution, right? And we break away from these systems, the global hegemony. What does our trading, bartering, money. What does it look like after that anyway? Right? So for me, if it, and the certain concepts are still pervasive, like in an ancient Kemet, right? Like you knew you had certain amount of grain stores for the people, like you had certain amount of resources that you had that, and that was what you used, right? Same thing with the economies now. Like we based our money, the Federal Reserve bases it on gold bullion, right? And Omwala, you're the money expert, so correct me if I'm wrong, but they base their gold reserves and their gold bullion that basically tells you how much, like they kind of use that as a vantage point, right? To say how much money we have. So
No,
like,
gold is detached from the value of money.
so okay, so they don't use the gold bullion in federal. They count the reserves. It's same thing with France. They have certain reserves and they use that as like a vantage point.
Gold, the monetary system is no longer attached to
Any
gold.
reserves.
To
So it
gold. It's
okay.
not.
Any commodities.
It used to be when
Yeah,
they first came,
until
okay, but now okay,
until
again,
1972.
because why? Because a group of people who are in power decided, all right, we're just going to do whatever we want. This will be representative of nothing, purely nothing. Doesn't have to be attached to gold because we don't have as much gold as other people. So they just do what they want, and that's kind of my point. Where I think that the way we set up our economic systems, it can be however we need it to be, in a way that is in harmony with nature. And I don't think that technology is the bad guy per se.
Oh,
Have any of you visited Haiti?
no, I haven't.
No.
No.
So Haiti, if you go to Haiti, you have a situation, right, where you have communities on the hill, right, that are beyond wealthy, like extreme wealth, and then everything in between is extreme poverty. When you roll that model out, what's happening to the global economy over the 21st century is, as they push for more and more of the so-called one world government, which one world currency goes with it, but as they push for more and more of that, this is what you are going to have. Even in the United States, nobody is going to be immune from, you're going to have hubs of extreme wealth, so-called digital cities, cashless cities, and you're going to have economic barren and wastelands all between that. So for me, like, that vision of a future for the planet is not one that I see any freedom for, in African for African people, right? Because all these technologies are used for control. So I'm not saying that the technology is inherently bad. I'm saying, how are our enemies and those who control us, right? Because we are subjugated and dominated. How do they use that to further strengthen their control and further disempower us as a group? And for me, that gives them complete control, because whether I'm a nation or an organization or an individual institution or just an individual person, I am now completely dependent on finding a way to plug into their system for my survival. And if their system is already fucking killing me and my goal is to destroy their shit, it doesn't make sense to, like, it becomes that scene on The Matrix where, everybody's plugged in, and they, the fucking machines have started to use people for their currency there. And I don't know, I don't want to get too far off into dystopia, but I'm just saying, for me, I feel like dystopia is what the European mind is looking to create on this fucking planet. And I'm looking at all the tools and technologies they're using to further aid in that destruction or development. So that's where I'm at with it, and that's why I end on the stance that no, it's not good for African people. But like Shanuti said, this is just my opinion.
I think that, I don't think that your critique is necessarily wrong. Like, what I don't want to do is necessarily speculate on that end game that we haven't had yet, because to me, that's already exists. You've got economic wastelands in between hubs of power. Like that's already there now from what I can tell, in my experience, in my travels. But what I will say is, you're right. How are these power players? What are they intending to do, and how are they utilizing this cryptocurrency to benefit themselves and perpetuate the systems that they have now? Because they're all scrambling, right, to get in on this how they can to make money and see where they can have a foothold in cryptocurrencies. And besides the futuristic like dystopia that you're describing, I'm trying to think about how in real time right now, what I'm hearing about certain people and how they're using it as actual commerce and things like they're not using it for speculation and things like that. They're using it for actual commerce. And I think that we have to do more research. I think that we have to be patient. And I think that we've got to think outside of the bubble and outside of the box. I think if you've got Africa, the African continental free trade area opening up, and you've got cryptocurrency in the future, I mean, we don't want to work backwards. We want to look at what our ancestors did, and together with that, create our own new possibility that we can protect and can control and won't be infiltrated by those people who we're at war with in the future. And I think we got to be creative and think outside the box.
Yeah. Yeah. LB, did you want to say something? No?
I want to say something just really quick in terms just to add to what, Sister Wahida said. We have to be creative. The source of our creativity must come from our culture. And without our culture, we're just, being chocolate covered Eurasians. And that's not something we should be looking to do. We must be aware of that, because there's a wise Jamaican proverb, one of my favorites. Yeah, probably my favorite one. My second one, no, we don't need to discuss the second one, but puss and dog na have the same luck. The point of the proverb is that a cat and a dog do not share in the same fate because they are two fundamentally different species. Us and Europeans are two different people. If you can't go to them to do your hair, why are you going to go to them with other things? And I think that's something we need to think about very carefully when we talk about being creative and looking into our culture. I think it's challenging because all of us, including myself, we're used to having Eurasian reference points. But I think as we come to consciousness, we have to realize we're fundamentally different people, right? I think that's very important. Puss and dog have the same luck. Very important to keep that in mind.
I spoke about what happened in Guinea Conakry when I think Sékou Touré was in power, when the French was able to inject like a lot of mass just money, and they flooded the economy with money. I think we can always look in our past. That's my point. We can always look in our past and see how can cryptocurrency can benefit us. That's my point. How can we use this tool? Because I don't want to. I mean, at some point, because I don't get yet the city you're talking about, because I'm trying just to look at what happened to us in the past. What are the things that cryptocurrency can help us to do tomorrow? And when I look at it, like I see that inflation is a constant issue that happens in African country. Cryptocurrency can do it. African people cannot buy like technology else to develop their own industry. Sometimes because we don't have access to the dollar or to the yen or all the other currency that will help us to get those things. With cryptocurrency, you can actually go around those things. I don't see any argument from anybody to kind of go against it. All I'm hearing is that there's rich people right now who are buying a bunch of those cryptocurrency. They're speculating. That's speculation. My point is, African people, we can have a cryptocurrency, right? We sell our stuff with our cryptocurrency. It's just money. The same way we're already doing right now. Like, it doesn't mean that the cash money will disappear, but like at least this thing is right there. Like everybody can count it. Everybody can see, you know what I mean? Because we have a look into it, you know. And something I want to add is like I'm not one of those people who just think that Bitcoin should not be regulated. I think any money should be regulated. I think currency it's a matter of sovereignty, right? And that's, to me, is one of the flaws with cryptocurrency. I have to admit that one of the flaws with cryptocurrency can be how can you be sovereign if for some type of like some type of tricks you look an important mass of your own currency. This is something that we can look. The fact, I think we have, like Wahida said, we have to really look into the technology, because I feel like if, say, Elon Musk, by some magics, right, he comes to Ivory Coast and is able to buy half of the coin, I think the government can go and look all the numbers that have been bought and cancel it just with the machine and just say like, whoop, reset, like I like that. Right now, the fact that we're using just paper money, we have like people who can counterfeit it. We have people, we don't even know how much dollar is around the world. There's so much money that there's people who are buying bananas against the wall for $500,000, or people buying like stupid art that has no real price. I think with cryptocurrency, what you have is really a very secure way of protecting nations and country against inflation. That's a very important thing to repeating it.
I will say though, you're talking about nations and countries and governments. I think we can actually pivot this, that indigenous groups can use these in ways that benefit us as indigenous people on the planet. Like governments, of course, can go ahead and do what they want to do, just like everybody else, any individual or any group. But I think like we can even, I don't know. We're having a conversation. It's a very important discussion. Obviously, this is our reality. And I think that anything we can do to take it back to our indigenous groups, our ethnic groups that exist, and we can use it to empower ourselves and trade with ourselves, to me, I think that's a plus.
Just really quick, because I know we way over time. There was something on NPR the other day, and they were talking about Facebook's new push. Sheryl Sandberg, the COO of Facebook, was talking about this new agenda that they have, where Facebook is creating an app similar to Google. And the purpose of them doing it is because their interface will be a way to get people access to the internet. And I think the number that they said was that out of the 7 billion people on the planet, I think currently only 2 billion people have internet access. So when we talk about indigenous people and our people in the village, they don't even have access to the technology to even benefit from it. But furthermore, if you recall, one of the things we used to say at the beginning of this podcast is that you have to have a criteria by which you assess something as good for Black people. And that has to be a measuring stick across everything you're assessing, right? We have to agree on what we are agreeing on, right? So for me, that criteria used to be, does it push us towards unity? Does it push us towards liberation? And does it push us towards sovereignty or greater strength? And that was kind of like what any topic would have to pass through for me to say it's good for African people. If it doesn't check those boxes, then I can't, in my right consciousness, say that this is something that's going to be good for us if it doesn't help us to achieve those things. So
you can say it's totally bad too. The thing is, like, I don't hear anything that make it sound. You cannot say it's useless. That's my point. Can you say it's useless for African people?
Because I didn't say it didn't have a use. We don't control our economy nor the direction of our economy. We don't control our monetary system nor the direction of the monetary system, right? Because central banks and world banks are a thing. So if those who control and use that control to dominate us are pushing a certain technology to get you to a certain point, i.e. a cashless society, that you have to ask through that lens. How does that benefit me if it makes me further dependent upon my enemy if it strengthens his control over me and weakens my ability to overthrow those who dominate me? That's the question you have to ask.
Okay. It's like now you're saying like, okay, if tomorrow I'm going and build my own AK-47 to defend myself, because it's like I'm kind of following your logic. Maybe that's not. Maybe I'm hearing it wrong. It's like you're saying
if you were to build your own AK-47 and create your own bullets, there's nothing I could do to weaken the impact of your bullets, right? I don't have any, like, your bullets are sovereign in and of themselves. If you were to create your own cryptocurrency, I definitely could weaken it, because your cryptocurrency is based off of its value based upon a common denominator that's not controlled by you. Just like they have yuan in China. They have the U.S. dollar. Every other dollar around the globe is based upon its value in relation to the U.S. dollar. That's the central dollar. That's what allows the monetary system to work, because they have a common measuring stick. Every other currency
it's Omwale. It's a political choice. China can decide not to do it tomorrow.
But then they can't. But if China is beholden to,
because it's China, them.
What was that?
Because it served them to do that, because they're partner. But if tomorrow they decide that now, okay, we don't want to use the dollar as a reference, they're just not going to do it. It's a political decision. That's the thing. That's one of the bigger misconceptions with money too. It's like people don't understand that it's a decision. Like it's not so much. So like you cannot say that the yen is directly tied to the dollar. Like it's a decision that China made.
No, it doesn't work like that. If the Chinese wanted to come buy this remote from me, let's say I'm a country, they want to buy 1 million remotes from me, and they say to me, hey, this yuan, they have to have a measuring stick that they say, hey, this yuan is worth this amount. Like, they could get, the shit could be worth toilet paper. You understand what I'm saying? Like, they have to have something. They can't say, oh, this yuan is worth $1,000 US dollars because I say it is. Like, no, you can't say because I say it is.
That's how it's actually happening.
That's not
That's how it's actually happening.
Stop.
I think there's a lot more.
When I create my currency, I give it. When I create the currency, I give it an actual value first, and then after,
you give it a denomination. You say that this is a $5 bill. That's the denomination of the currency. Its value is based upon a common currency that all currencies are measured against. Right? Okay. It used to be gold. So if the gold is this much per ounce, then that's the value that all currencies are measured against. It's no longer gold. The US dollar is now that currency. And the value of the US currency is controlled by the US central bank. Well, it's really, the US central bank ain't owned by the US, it's owned by other parties. It's not a government entity, right? So that means that the US has the ability, the US Treasury has the ability to increase or decrease the dollar when the value of it whenever they want. Yeah. If they want to decrease the value, they just put more dollars out into the market. If they want to increase the value, they buy up T-bonds. That's how they get dollars. I mean, they sell T-bonds, so that's how they get the dollars out of the market. So like, this is this is why the IMF and shit can fucking destabilize places like Venezuela, North Korea, because like it's you plugged into it and they can isolate you and put a rope around your neck and control you. So I'm just asking, how does giving them greater control over us economically help us? That's the question that I'm asking.
Well, you definitely need to do a lot of research about it, because I still have a lot of questions regarding this. There's still a lot of concepts like I need to understand. All right, so yeah, yeah, I mean, there's a good point, because like I mean, like, how you feel it's already like an hour and 45 minutes. But,
y'all can answer the question. This is good for African people. We can just wrap up. I gave my answer.
Well, who want to conclude first? Is it good for African people here? You can say a few things and then you conclude. Want to go on?
I'll just say no. Anything that we have to say we're doing it our way different from them is probably not good for African people 9 out of 10 times.
LB?
Shanuti, I'm with Owen Tristan on this one. I really am. I'm with Owen Tristan on this one. I really want us to try to imagine just doing something for us from scratch and just seeing how that works. We really, you know what I'm saying, at this stage of the game, we willing to take risks on everybody else. Let's just take the risk on ourselves. You know what I'm saying, first. So for me right now, I'm gonna say no. It's not good for African people.
Mwali world.
Yeah. I think it can be good for African people, and I think that African people on the ground are making actual use of it outside of, you know, just trying to, like, you know, make a quick dollar and speculate. I think it actually has practical application for us. I'm concerned with the direction that the big money movers and the banks and the governments are going to play once they get their stronghold over it. I think that this could be good. I think that we've been seeing it being good for us so far. I think it also helps us to divorce from this monetary system a bit, and I think that we can easily, you know, we don't have to reinvent the wheel, right? Like, we invented the wheel, we invented monetary systems at the beginning. All of the basic concepts of economics are something we've already practiced before, right? And or things are just derivatives of that over time. So I think that, to me, it's possible that this can be good for African people, and I think that there are examples of it being good for us so far.
Yeah, and for me, I mean, I'm not convinced by the opposition. I need more. I need to learn more about it. I think that there's an opportunity for African people in the cryptocurrency world. I think it will benefit them in some aspect. I think it's very new. Everybody is afraid. I'm also scared sometimes. I'm trying to learn as much as possible, but like right now, I think that if we all intelligent people, if we African people, and we have you know, we smart, we will know how to use it in our own advantage, you know. So for me, if you ask me if it's good for African people, I say without a doubt it can be good, you know. And I'm learning about the flaws right now, but I don't see any problem for African people to create their own. I'm not talking about using Bitcoins or Dogecoin or anything like that, but I see African people being able to create their own cryptocurrency, right? And trade
it's not just the crypto. It's very important. It's the blockchain. The blockchain is what controls everything. Like, there is no, you know, somebody can just come in and shut it down. Like, there's other chains and other blockchains that exist if you create those systems.
All right. So this is the show. That went we spent a lot of time. So we thank you again for following with us. In 2 weeks, I believe, right?
2 weeks.
2 weeks, we're gonna have the finally. It's gonna be during AI week, and it's going.
We're gonna have what, Shanuti?
The season finale. Finally. The season finale.
Finally. Sorry,
African World Order Podcast Season 1 is about to be in the bag. So y'all let us know what y'all want to see for that last episode, and we're gonna make it happen.
Yeah, send us feedback. We want to come back next year stronger with better content. So what we say, unity is our aim.
Wait, before you wrap it up, you gotta plug back in AI Week real quick. Let us know, everybody. Make sure you follow us. Let them know about what's going on. Let them know about the fundraiser, things like that. Things we're kicking off, and then we wrap it up.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, do it.
Okay, yeah. Again, May 19th to May 25th, family. Malcolm X Day to African Liberation Day. Follow us on social media. Twitter, IG at AI Philly. I'm sorry, AI_Philly. On Facebook at AI Philadelphia. Definitely go ahead and follow us. Get on the BB2Me, get on the African Community, and follow us. Look for AI Philly on there, Afrocentricity International Philadelphia chapter on a BB2Me. During AI Week, we are celebrating, again, as Shanudi said at the beginning, at the top of the show, 10 years with Afrocentricity International. And then we're also going to be kicking off a fundraiser for us. We need a new building. So definitely please send your donations. We have so many things we want to do for y'all in the community, and we want to keep being of service to our community. We have so many programs and activities and events. So we do need that physical space again. COVID definitely put a damper on things. So catch us on AI Week. Make sure you follow us, like, share, subscribe our video, and keep following African World Order Podcast. We're back at 7 p.m. in 2 weeks.
All right. Peace. Unity is our aim.
Victory is our destiny.
Victory is our destiny.
All right. Ashe.
I think what we are suffering from is ideological confusion. That is, that we're not clear, we're not thinking clearly, and that we need a context within which to answer the question, is something good or bad? We assume that we have the same goals, but we never say what they are. It's time for us to think and articulate and establish our goals as Black nationalists and Pan-Africanists. We need vision, we need clarity. Otherwise, we can't answer the question, is it good for African people? Nationalist goals is self-determination. In the spirit of Delaney, Garvey, Malcolm, Amos. It is Pan-African commitment, that is the unity of African people worldwide and one Africa on the continent as a basis for African strength. So we are about building a Pan-African world order based on the principles of Ma'at, not in imitation of a European order. Ma'at as justice and truth. We need a nation concept, as Dr. Clark told us. A Black economic program, a cultural program, an independent political organization, independent Black media, independent African-centered education financed by us and controlled by us. All of this presupposes, very importantly, an African Black identity.